Oh, who remembers that? Well, I think my friend does right here. Alan Hunter, I haven't seen you since high school.
Me either. It's been a
Where
long
have you
time since I've been
been?
in high school. I don't know. You look like you're fresh out of it, Monica.
Oh,
You
that's
are.
a good man.
Are you even part of the demographic that watched MTV back in the day? That's what I want to know.
I spent so many of my grade school and high school years with you and your friends. Let me introduce Alan Hunter, one of the original VJs from MTV. We've been looking forward to this. I have to thank my best friend, Michelle Harmon, who was driving around one day and she heard Alan say on 80s on 8 from Sirius XM that he was broadcasting from Webster Groves. And she's like, what?
Isn't that
Webster
crazy?
Groves? Huh? Yeah. 2 years, or you said you moved here, what, a couple years ago?
Yeah, we moved from San Francisco 2 years ago. My wife is a smarty pants professor at Washington U,
Oh,
and
so
we were
sure.
living the life in wine country in San Francisco, thinking we'd be there forever if the fires and earthquakes and drought would allow us to do that. But then she got this job at Wash U, and we up like the Beverly Hillbillies, going the opposite direction, moved back to the Midwest. So here we are.
Well, welcome. We are thrilled to have you. We'll talk about what it's been like to be here for the last couple of years. We're going to go back to the 80s. I thought it was really funny. I was reading an article, Alan, that you said that your kids schooled you, that you were asked to speak on a cruise and everybody's in their 80s attire. And what did you say?
Yeah, the 80s cruise is going on its ninth year, by the way, in just a month. So I'm prepping for that. And I
Mhm.
don't know what that even means, getting my sea legs. The first one we went on, I had my older kids. I got two older kids that live down in New Orleans now. My daughter and my son came and were my chaperones. My wife did not want to come with me on the cruise. She said, no, thanks. 3,000 80s fans, you on a boat in the ocean? I don't think so. But
I'm not doing it.
the first night, Mark and Nina and I, my BJ pals, were up on stage welcoming everybody to the inaugural cruise. And I'm sort of a frustrated stand-up comic. So for me to bust everybody's chops about being there on this 80s boat and what's it going to be like for the next week. And I look down and I see people all dressed up in 80s garb, on the first night. And I started cutting jokes. Hey, mister, you really took this seriously, didn't you? Ha, ha, ha. I was being irreverent, right? That's kind of my gig.
Sure.
And after it was over, my daughter came up to me and said, Dad, you can't poke fun at these people. They are seriously here
Mhm.
to see you and the bands and, relive a golden time in their lives. And
Yes.
you're up there busting their chops. Don't do it. And from then on, I've been reverent and sincere ever since. Good fun.
9 years of this cruise. I love that it continues because, again, it was such an amazing time. Like I said, so let's go back. So 1981 to 1987, Alan Hunter is on MTV with Nina, with Mark, with Martha, with JJ. These are those, the impressionable years that we're running around and we can't wait to get home from school, Alan, to
Exactly.
see the videos. I mean, what was it like for you? First of all, I know you were an actor and
Yeah.
how it all came about. A lot of people want to know, how did you become a VJ?
I think more factually, I was a bartender. I mean, I went to New York in 1980 to get into the entertainment business. I wanted to be on Broadway. I took acting classes. I went to Circle in the Square Drama School. I did all the things prepping my big, Hugh Jackman career, Broadway, movies, TV. And so I was bartending and waiting tables and getting bit parts in movies. I had a bit part in the David Bowie video, which was an interesting 3 months before I got the job as a VJ. I was in a David Bowie video, having no idea where the video would be shown
Mhm.
or what this world was even about. So, yeah, I wanted to be an actor. And all of a sudden I got this job as a host, which was what? I had no idea where it would take me. I just know that I was under a year paying my dues in New York. It's not like I'd been struggling for years. So at 22, 23, I get this offer to be a host on a cable television show. Cable television, early 80s, was up there with, trash and porno channels and public access. And so my parents were worried about me still. I was like, oh my God. But I
What's
got the
getting
gig.
into?
They were going to pay me some money. And I said, that's better than starving. I'll take it. And here we go.
If you're just tuning in, once again, we're talking with Alan Hunter. You remember him looking like
Oh my
this.
God, look at that.
Look at that hair.
Yeah, how about it? I was sporting the mullet, no doubt, but I wasn't the only one.
Now, here's the deal, Alan. So it's so funny where you grew up as to whether you call it a mullet or in like North County, where I grew up in Florissant, people called it bi-level.
I'll take that.
So bi-level or the mullet. I mean, these are the days. These were our friends, right? So many of you. If you have any memories you want to talk about, feel free to drop comments in. I know a lot of people on the live show this morning had some questions that I'll be asking Alan in just a bit, but unbelievable memories from the 1980s. When I started the show and played that rocket launch, it obviously took you back. What did it make you feel like?
Well, it gives me tingles to this day, no doubt. I can be transported immediately back to August the 1st, 1981. It was 12 midnight. We had all, I mean, again, to give you a context of MTV's beginnings, it was a very cheap operation, though backed by Warner Communications and American Express, but they gave them very little money to start a brand new cable station, which was unheard of. Before that, CNN, ESPN were the only 24/7 cable channels that you could watch. MTV rolls along. And when it came time for the launch that night, we all were put on a yellow bird school bus, Sirius. Us VJs, the crew, the producers, bust us out of Manhattan to go to Fort Lee, New Jersey, which is the only place you could watch the show because it wasn't on cable in Manhattan or any other major market. So we bust out to this little bar restaurant, which was a seedy little place. We stood around for an hour or two, drinking cheap champagne and eating Vienna sausages, waiting for the blast off to occur. And when that rocket blasted off, and after this, the man who happened to be one of the creators of MTV, one of the executives, a guy named John Lack, said, "Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll." And then the Buggles came on, and we all cried. Literally, we were so amazed at what this was because no one had any idea
Yeah.
what the beast was. What do you mean we're going to host in between a bunch of videos? And so it was pretty amazing to see it.
It is. And then, of course, all of this was all these artists, Sting, Pat Benatar, all of them saying, call your cable channel,
Yeah,
tell them
yeah,
I want my
yeah.
MTV.
Which didn't happen for a while. These promos, by the way, came almost a year into it, maybe a little less than that, about a half a year, really. And because MTV had 2.5 million viewers in the beginning. That's how many people could watch it across the nation. This is not some overnight, sitcom on NBC sensation.
Right.
It's a slow burn. But kids in Iowa and Oklahoma and the middle part of the country all had cable. And they were all watching this weird thing 24/7. But they weren't getting what they call hookups with the local cable stations. They didn't understand it. So MTV said, we're going to do a campaign that's going to, make people get up off the couch and call the local cable station. So they got the Police and the Who and David Bowie and Mick Jagger and Cyndi Lauper and Pat Benatar to do these promos that said, I want my MTV. You remember that? Call your local cable station. So the local cable guys started getting massive phone calls from people saying, we want this MTV. And their reply was, what is that?
Yeah.
Barely knew. And before you know it, within a 3 to 4 week period of that ad campaign, MTV started to be taken by the local cable stations across the country. And that part was sort of overnight. It was just crazy.
It was amazing. Again, Alan Hunter is our guest. We're talking about the early years of MTV and household names that they became. The thing that a lot of people didn't know, Alan, is although they thought as they would run home from school, we got to be there because it's live, these shows were not live.
Yes, I'm here to burst that bubble. Well, we'd like to have been live, but there was no way to do it. It was such it was a shoestring production. But it was real television studios and real, people, 100 or so people putting the production together. They couldn't do it live 24/7. So we taped it in advance. We were fairly fresh. On Monday, we taped for Tuesday, but we made it appear live. I mean, at 4 a.m, you think I was up rocking it? No, I did that on, Monday morning at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But no one knew the better. I mean, we were very familiar with the videos. After a while, it was second nature for me to have a kind of late night vibe or an early morning vibe. My show, after a while, started happening like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I was the aerobics guy. Me and all the housewives across the country were watching MTV while everybody was at work. So it worked out. Nobody knew.
There he is.
Yes, there I am dancing. Oh my God.
This made me laugh. This particular clip, you you say Atari, and then you're like, "Doo, doo, 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 doo," and
Yeah.
then popping a beer open.
I love that shirt, by the way. I gave that thing away, not, I don't know, a couple of years ago. My wife said, "You have got to get rid of this stuff."
You still had all this?
I had a lot of stuff. I was a pack rat. In fact, I'll tell you about all the stuff I collected. Went into the Grammy Museum in Cleveland, Mississippi. There too, L.A. and Cleveland. And 2 years ago, they had an MTV 40-year anniversary exhibit.
Mhm.
And I showed them all the stuff I had. Of all of the VJs, I saved everything: clothes, my Moon Man award, laminates and backstage passes and T-shirts and jackets and stuff. So I shipped it all down there. They put it in this big exhibit for a year. And I thought I had seen the last of it. My wife is so happy.
Exactly.
Carry that stuff around. They sent it back a couple of months ago because the exhibit was over. So I can remember all my clothes and all the outfits that I loved and abhorred at the same time.
Now we know Alan Hunter was a pack rat.
I was a pack rat for the memorabilia anyway. I still have boxes here with moon. I have Nike moon boots, which Nike made a special
I
pair of
remember those.
high top shoes that had the MTV logo on it.
Well, I mean, hey, it's understandable. You
Heady
were around
times.
you were around some incredible artists. You have such I mean, the opportunities that you had, and we're going to talk about hedonism. We're going to talk about Billy Joel and Russia. We've got some questions that I know some of you were asking this morning, so I want to make sure that we mix them in back and forth. Michelle just said, "I want to go through those boxes." Who wouldn't?
Oh my, they're musty. They're musty. Yeah.
Spray it out. It needs some air freshener.
Actually, I will say on top of that, my wife, being an academic years ago, was doing some research and was in contact with the people at the New York Public Library, with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. But the library was interested in collecting all of my memorabilia, more the memos and the press releases and the laminates and stuff, to store and to keep in their vaults for all time. All of my stuff, all the videos I had of the air checks, of the interviews, they actually digitized everything. And it's now stored at the New York Public Library if you want to access it, because pop culture, from any decade, is important, but particularly the 80s. There are people who do nothing but research pop culture, and the 80s is a very important part of that. And my little addition to the research archives is there at the New York Public Library and at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's crazy.
Oh, cool.
People are into this. My wife's a little younger than me and
Okay.
like crazy nuts about it.
Hey, I think it was the best decade. For the 80s were incredible to me, and the best music. I mean, it's so fun to go back and, like you were saying, on the cruises, of dressing up. What's your favorite, besides the mullet or the bi-level, whatever you want to call it? What's your favorite fashion from back in the 80s?
Well, it's got to be parachute pants
Yes.
and jackets. Duran probably most notably wore there was a lot of fabric back in those days. Everything was oversized. David Byrne did the oversized jacket and the pants and stopped making sense, early 80s talking heads. Duran were very fashionable and came with the endless amounts of fabric that was overlaid and tied over. But we would go down to the Soho, which is area of Manhattan that at the time was a big shopping area. And we would go and get our wardrobe with our wardrobe person. We would dress up like the rock stars. We were not of the musicians, but we were the traffic cops for that. So we were embedded and enmeshed in that crazy world. That meant we wore the same fashions and we went to the shows. So we had to stay sane. I will say that, because when you're the traffic cop, you can't be out of your mind. But I like the parachute pants. I like the oversized stuff.
Yep.
Obviously, people peg me as being a guy who wore rainbow suspenders all the time. I said that was my Robin Williams, Mork and Mindy period.
Well, let's talk about that, because I know you have. Okay, let's just run through some of this.
Oh,
I've looked at different articles, interviews. So he's interviewed Madonna, Duran, U2, Ozzy Osbourne, Frank and Moon Unit Zappa. You just mentioned, from the comedic aspect, not just Robin Williams, Steve Martin, Bob and Doug McKenzie, Tom Hanks, Pee Wee Herman, Chevy Chase, but Robin Williams, one of my absolute favorites. Rest in peace, sir. Yeah. Did you get a chance to even get a word in edgewise, though, with that man?
That was pretty tough. The thing about MTV is that after a while, it was more than just a video jukebox for music. It became kind of the epicenter of entertainment. People came on the show to promote their movies. Footloose Kevin Bacon came on to promote Footloose. Dan Aykroyd came on to promote Ghostbusters. It was the kind of the place to go for anything in that realm. For me to interview Robin Williams, who was the first comedian I saw at the Improv in New York when I was a starving actor waiting tables. I went out to the clubs and saw Robin at the Improv or Catch, I forget. Loved him on the HBO special. So I was a huge fan.
Mhm.
He did Moscow on the Hudson. You remember that movie?
Yes.
82, 83-ish. And he came on to promote the movie. And I obviously said, no one will interview him but me. He was like wrangling. It was like a rodeo for sure. He was very energetic, and I won't say why.
Uh-huh.
The sweetest human being on the planet, so frail and vulnerable, but amazing. But my only job, like anybody who interviewed him, when he was on Carson, all Carson did was throw out a question and let him go.
Yeah.
And that he did. But I got to mimic him a little bit because I did the Nanu Nanu, and I did Robin Williams jokes. So it was probably one of the highlight interviews for me, for sure.
Well, Alan, that once again, let me reintroduce Alan Hunter, one of the original VJs from MTV, 1981 to 1987. Again, you remember this crew. Do you get a chance? I know that you all did collaborate on a book, and you've been back together for different things. When's the last time you've seen some of them?
Yeah, probably Mark and I are the ones that are the tightest. We go on these 80s cruises a lot. Nina has not been on the last one or two. Martha, who was with us, there we are all at Sirius.
Mm-hmm.
She left to go to iHeart. She actually got hired by our former boss, Bob Pittman, who created MTV and is the CEO of iHeart. Hired her away, but she's still in our thoughts. I was texting and emailing them all just a couple of days ago. I mean, we're pretty tight when it comes certainly to events that affect us in the business. In terms of seeing Martha, it was probably a year ago, maybe, that I saw Martha. Nina, probably the same. Mark and I saw each other in New York just a couple of months ago. So we're all very connected and always will be. We kind of went through, we call it the Poseidon adventure, but the ship didn't sink. We went through this crazy thing together that only 5 people understand. We were the only 5 people that did what we did for 7 years.
And you called it chaos in the beginning. Why?
Yeah, well, it was put together by duct tape. I mean, very little money. It was a cable channel. No one knew how it was going to work. So from day one, it was bare bones. They gave me $500 cash to go get wardrobe, to go to Macy's and get some sale items. I had no clothes as a starving actor. And it was a big experiment for quite a long time. From, is it a scripted thing we asked the host to do? Is it extemporaneous? After a while, it just became, let them do what they do. I was one who was much more into physically harassing the camera and being much more free. To their credit, MTV and the folks that put it together, and then those of us who helped create the handbook. We got to write the handbook for what a video jock was. But we weren't newscasters, so we weren't there to be in a coat and tie, reading the news. We were there to, in my opinion, to be the glue between the kind of fun, innocent chaos of the video. So between a Talking Heads video and a Duran Duran, I decided I would be kind of fun. And if I did a cartwheel into the frame and said, waka waka, here's the news, that worked. And so my kind of physical, easy with the camera, everything is fair game. If I wanted to go over to the fern at the back of the set and hack it in half with a baseball bat, that was good. So the irreverence that MTV was promoting, so contrary to anything else people were seeing on television. This is not on television who beat down a fern on the set.
What's up with this guy? What's he doing?
That's the deal. My friend Mark Goodman didn't understand it. He was much more of a kind of a credible music journalist, a music guy. He has a huge reputation in the radio business. And in the beginning, he didn't understand why is it just props and silliness. Alan is just an actor,
That is where I wanted to go with that, Alan. Actually, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to
Yep.
ask you about, you put five people together, all walks of life, don't know each other, and you ask them to just be friends right away. So I knew that Mark had that background and was probably like trying to like, who is this? Figuring this
Yes.
out. We're going to talk about the relationship, the friendship. Any questions? I see some questions coming in. We'll get to your questions as well. We're visiting with Alan Hunter from our 80s days of MTV. Envita Health and Wellness, where you can feel your best both inside and out. Envita isn't your typical med spa. They're a multi-specialty medical spa and wellness center serving St. Louis and its surrounding areas. They have ketamine for mental health and pain, IV therapy, medical weight loss, and aesthetics treatments. As board-certified anesthesia providers, Envita can ensure that their advanced treatments are provided safely with minimal to no pain. So let Envita take care of you. Call 314-394-0950 to book an appointment or online envitahealthandwellness.com. We need women to lift women up.
Let's do that. Let's go. Being on Monica's show, it was like one of the best interviews I've ever had.
Monica's very real, and she really cares about people.
She's changing lives.
Changing lives.
I think this is just really what people want to see.
Giving back so much to the community, and I really appreciate it.
Today, Monica was extraordinarily real, not only with me, but with her viewers and her listeners.
Made the interview process like talking to a friend.
How are you doing? Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a few weeks.
Hey. You're close.
Monica. Yeah. Whoa.
So go out in this world and be anything you want to be. But before you do that, first, be kind. Well, let's go. You see right there, it's normally 7 a.m. and we saw a lot of you early this morning, but I told you I was going to give you a bonus show and I wanted to do it live. I know a lot of people might be at work, so a ton of people will see this when they come home. A lot of people are like, I so wish he could have been on early.
Just, I don't get up before usually noon.
Ellen's like, I'm not doing it at 7.
They get to school. I don't know how they get to school. Dad's, trying to work off a hangover from the night before, and I just couldn't make it. Here we are. I got a gig too, so I had to do my gig.
Exactly. So let's say where Ellen is now. I know we went back into the 80s, but you can hear him on Sirius XM 80s on 8 in Classic Rewind, where
Yes.
a lot of people have been listening. You've been doing that for a while now.
I have 15 plus years now. I thought it was going to be a part-time gig. Who knew what Sirius Satellite was, 20 years ago? I had a film company and we were working on a movie.
Yep.
And I kept getting a phone call from somebody at Sirius Radio, kept putting it on my office phone number. And I get a lot of calls from folks in radio. Hey, Alice, Hot 100 in Houston. Want to talk to you about the 80s. And I'm like, really? So I kept ignoring the phone call. And I had an old MTV executive pal who said, man, you got to take this call. It's Sirius. At the time, Sirius and XM were two separates.
Correct.
So I jumped on. It's kind of a part-time gig for me. I did my little radio show and then I went off and was producing independent movies at the time. And then I can't believe it's lasted this long. The satellite will not fall out of the sky. It's become more of a full-time, certainly it's the reason I've been able to move around with my family because we can do the show anywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's been great. It's been a great platform. I don't see that it's going to stop anytime soon, but you and I are in the entertainment business, basically.
Right.
We never know when to feel secure. So
no, very true. And you know what? At the break, Alan and I were talking and he's like, so Monica, tell me a little bit more about the background. I told him, I worked with Fox 2 and NBC and I worked in radio for 12 years prior to that. And as you said, I wanted to change and you know all about that.
Yes. I've been through many phases in my life. I got the best gig anyone could ever want early on as a young man, although it took me away from my Broadway appearances, which I'm sure I would have made. Don't think I was going to be De Niro in movies, but it certainly, it took me on a whole nother trajectory when I was done with MTV in the 80s, 88-ish. Living in New York, ready to move to Los Angeles. The whole business was kind of moving to the West Coast, the record business, the music business. But I wanted to reinvigorate my acting career, which was difficult because I get out there. And my anecdotes are that, I go to the casting session and the casting director freaks out, can't believe he's meeting me. And I'm not being arrogant here. I'm just saying that was the bizarre conflict for me, was that these people, everybody watched MTV 24/7. We were everybody's best friend. We were not Tom Cruise. I wasn't a movie star. I wasn't a news person, but we were in people's lives every day, all the time. And so we were like their friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I come in, the casting director says, "Man, it's so good to meet you. This is great. Would you sign this autograph for my wife?" Not for him. And then he would make me do a profile, state my name, and I wouldn't get the gig. It was very tough.
Sure.
Well, he's the VJ. How can we now put him in a role? So that was a downturn for me, no doubt. I was living in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
The minute I moved out there, the writers went on strike for a year. So I learned to play golf and go to coffee shops.
Is your golf game good?
Didn't get much better. You can't play golf when you're feeling anxious about your career and money. And I had starting my family, we were starting to grow 2 kids with my first marriage. And so it was kind of perfect timing. It's like the universe, right?
Yep.
I was out of work, but I was around for my kids all the time. And if Dad was a little anxious as I pushed him on the swing a little too hard, because Dad didn't know where his next gig was coming from.
Whoops, my kid just went flying.
Yeah, but at least I was there for you. Yeah, so that's been the roller coaster of my life in the past few years. Got married again 16, 17 years ago now.
Elizabeth, right?
Elizabeth is my smarty pants wife, who's the reason we came back here to St. Louis.
That's where I was going. So let's do this, because I can't wait for you to say it. So Birmingham, Alabama is where our friend Alan Hunter is from. And look at this.
Born and raised.
I have
More damn eagle.
Say it again.
More damn eagle.
Yes.
I was born and raised a Tiger fan. Funny that they got a mascot of a tiger and an eagle. My father worked at Auburn for a little while as an entertainment director, but I was born and raised an Auburn fan. Obviously, I rooted for the Crimson Tide because it's my home state. So when the Tide not playing the Tigers, I root for Auburn. Obviously, I was rooting for Bama and the last failed game. But my heart is still there. I go back a lot. I could talk about all the things that I was a part of. After my Hollywood career, I decided to move away and go back home for a while in the mid-90s. Started a film company with a brother.
Hunter Films, right?
Hunter Films. We did a bunch of really good stuff. Didn't make a damn dime in it. It's hard to make money in the independent film business. But started a film festival 25 years ago, which is still going strong in Birmingham. Got involved in civics and some politics, and it was just really satisfying.
Birmingham, for all of you who have never been, let me tell you what, it's incredible. Alan, we get there as often as we can. My husband's favorite aunt, Janet, is there. So if you're from Birmingham, are you familiar with King Cotton? Because it's over 50 years old. That's what they owned.
Yeah, I do know that.
They're in Vestavia Hills.
Okay, sure. Well, I lived around Mount Brook and lived in Vestavia for a while. I lived all over.
Beautiful places to shop, and it's become, just like St. Louis, and I hope you've experienced that, definitely a foodie area.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, we've been a foodie town for a long time. My father, in fact, was an early investor in some of the early restaurants there. Highlands Restaurant, a guy named Frank Stitt is an award-winning chef, and so it's been a foodie town. For me to be a PR guy for my home state has not always been easy. I'm not going to promote what I think is wrong with the state, and I'm pretty honest about it. I'm kind of like Charles Barkley. We love it, but we speak our mind when I think they're doing silly stuff. Birmingham is an experiential town. People think of it as steel, the epicenter of the civil rights struggle in the 60s, which it was.
Sure.
But it's like St. Louis in that it's got a difficult past. It even has some hiccups still, but what character, we've got. So promoting Birmingham is easy for me. I get there as much as I can. I'll go back to the Sidewalk Film Festival, which is my festival for number 26. That's in
August. Is it? August, okay.
Yep, latter part of August. We've got a cinema. We've got a 2-screen cinema that over the years we've been trying to raise millions of dollars for to build an actual home. So it's working, and I feel like that's my home base, always will be. At this point, my wife's going to continue to keep me and the family moving. We're set now because WashU is a great place. This is sort of a dream job. And
Well, she's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
I love the fact that you were brought here and that you've embraced it. What have you loved most about, again, he's in Webster Groves. What have you loved most about St. Louis? What are your favorite restaurants, your favorite places to hang out with your family?
Well, in Webster Groves, obviously, I live around a bunch of great restaurants, but
Mhm.
I don't like to just stay in the hood. I like to get into Tower Grove. I like to CWE is fun because that's around her campus. Um, I think it's still been a discovery for me. The one thing about St. Louis, kind of like Birmingham, in that it's disjointed. There's a lot of areas that are not well connected, so you have to sort of to get from one place to the other. I still get lost. I have to get back on 44 and then get off one exit later because I can't go the surface roads without using my GPS. I think the history here is interesting. I think
Right.
it's got so much history from the architecture when you go down to Grand Boulevard and go to the Fox and you
Mhm.
wander around there and you see all the amazing architecture. The history of the music world here. Every day I learned that someone else
It's
came
from
from
here?
here. I knew Miles Davis was from here, but I forgot that Michael McDonald came from around here.
Yep. And Tina Turner from East St. Louis.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
she
it.
was, yes.
That's it.
The music scene you would have loved. The history of it absolutely is just incredible.
Yeah.
Road tripping with Alan Hunter. That's what we need to do. We do mobile Monica. You and I need to do that together.
I've done the road trip before for MTV back in the day. It was called The Muck in America. If people want to Google
Yes.
that. That was
Yeah. Anybody that has any questions, by the way, let me get to some of them. Diane and Julie from early this morning, they said they were in love with you. Big crush on Alan in the late 80s, Diane says. I remember an article you said that you showed up at, was it a record store? And you were trying to figure out why 1,000 people were lined up and who they were lined up for?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a common tale with anybody who wasn't famous and then maybe overnight or didn't really understand, who the audience was. Early on in MTV's existence, we didn't really know. We lived in Manhattan. It wasn't on in Manhattan, LA, San Francisco, Chicago. It was not on a major market. So we lived and worked in Manhattan. I went to work every day and no one knew me. It didn't matter. We get shipped out half a year into MTV's existence to go to Oklahoma or Iowa somewhere, to go to Middle America to do an appearance. The local cable station wants to fly you out and you'll mingle with the viewers. Early on, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be a dud. So we show up at the record store and there's 1,000 people. And I asked, why are all these people here? What rock star is also joining me today? And they said, they're here to see you. And it was true. They showed up so amazed to see the person they've been watching along. Of course, all the questions were, what's Martha Quinn like? Yeah. I love Mark Goodman, but you're here. So, okay. Second banana. Then each of us would come back. We all had the same tale. That first year, we all would come back from these appearances and say, y'all, something's happening here. Middle America is watching MTV like obsessively. This is a big thing. So we got the sense that first year that this was going to last. For one, maybe I could keep my job, buy some new furniture for the apartment. Swear to God, that was my thinking. Can I get another apartment, actually, a better apartment? And it had everything to do with these appearances that we would go and make and see real people freaking out about how much they watch and how much it's a part of their life. We became, at that point, kind of the wallpaper for people in their lives daily. And there's no other precedent for it. You watch Tom on Tuesday night and, it was great. All in the Family's great, but MTV's 24/7.
Yeah, we loved it. Everybody, again, Alan Hunter from your 80s days. Again,
here to haunt your St. Louisan. How do you say it? St. Louisan?
St. Louisan.
Louisan?
Yes.
Alabamian.
Exactly.
Louisan, yes. Right.
I love the fact that you just said y'all. I love it. So I was asking going into the break that you're all thrown together and, just like so many people, let's talk about parents. They put all these kids together and they expect them all to be best friends. And it's like, whoa, you don't even know each other. So how was it in the initial, and then were there some hard times? Give us the behind the scenes stuff. Maybe you haven't even talked about before. If there were hard times and then you just had growth together.
Well, they did put 5 very disparate characters together. I think it was brilliant casting. They had searched for almost a year to find hosts for this channel. And they started in radio. They started, interviewing and auditioning radio people, and they found out that radio people don't always work on television. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just a look, but they then went to some of the musicians. Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon was contacted by the MTV execs to be a host. And he said, I've got this gig with REO and you want to pay me how much? I don't think so. Yeah, this is cable television. For me, a couple of bucks was a big thing. For them, no. I was hired. I signed the contract 3 weeks before MTV went on the air. So I was the last guy they auditioned. They were coming down to the pike August 1st, 81. I auditioned in like June, July. And I bumped into Bob Pittman, who created MTV. I bumped into him at a picnic in Central Park, introduced by mutual friends. He said he was working on this cable station. I had no idea what he was talking about, except he said video. And I said, funny, I was just in a David Bowie video 3 months earlier. So it showed up on Midnight Special, which is the only place you could see videos. But you're talking 24/7, I have no idea. I'm auditioning for a movie, and I was just in a new wave punk rock version of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream on the Lower East Side. Good luck with your little cable station, Bob. I got a call the next day from the executive producer. He said, Bob bumped into you. You should come and audition. I did 3 horrible auditions and then got the gig. I show up to the first sort of introductory dinner that the execs put together for the 5 of us. And we showed up, didn't know anything about any of us. We really hadn't met. Martha and I related really well. Nina and I got along the best because she was an actress. JJ was like the patriarch of the whole clan. He was the biggest hearted, most wonderful person on the planet, gracious. Mark and I circled around each other like wary lions in the pride, are you the king or am I the king? He was very arrogant and he thought I was a nerd. So he and I took a long time to get to be comfortable with each other. Mm-hmm. But the 5 of us, I think, pretty much immediately bonded because we knew we were the only 5 that were doing what we were doing. Right. Hundreds of other people, thousands of other people were putting this new cable station on, and we were the faces. We weren't the most well paid, but we did feel special. And so we bonded pretty quickly. Mark and I took a little while longer. But when we did, we've obviously been, we're brothers in arms ever since. So he understood me.
That's it. I mean, this show's all about finding patience, positivity, just being real. I love the fact you're talking about being raw and authentic. And that's what we need more of in life for sure. Kathy said, I adored Martha.
Who didn't? Again, every dude comes up to me and says, what's Martha Quinn like? And I said, about this tall,
She was so tiny, so petite. But yes, that next door, everybody's best friend. Michelle just said, OMG, it's Alan Hunter. Yes, it is. Alan Hunter from MTV is on with us.
Could be a nightmare on a Friday. I don't know. But here I am, drinking my coffee in St. Louis.
Somebody else had a big crush on you. Look at all these crushes you had, Alan.
People have an image of who you are on television. I was actually shorter back then. I've grown over time.
Oh, how tall are you?
I'm 5'8".
Well, you're my height.
I'm taller than Michael J. Fox and Prince. I'll say that much. And right up there with Billy Joel.
He had those heels.
Yes, he did. I'm about life choices, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. I think people of our age will probably want to say, I feel better. I'm in much better shape. It's a little bit of an ego thing that we've got to say that.
Yeah.
But along with the artists, and I comment all the time on my Sirius XM show, if they've been putting out new music, you've got new albums from Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and Tears for Fears, and all these 80s bands have kind of resurrected their creative spirit. And they're putting out music that is as relevant as their time back in the day. Now, this is an issue with pop music. It tends to move on.
Right.
And even if you're putting out good music, they've already moved on to Dua Lipa and Halsey, which I love. Mm-hmm. But they are more mature and taking care of themselves better. Their voices are in better shape than they've ever been. I started karate 8 years ago, got my black belt, subsequently ruined my shoulder and had to get it replaced 5 weeks ago. But I've got a bionic arm and I'm feeling good. I feel like I've been on the radio for 15 years and I'm finally starting to understand how to do it. The point being, you can let yourself sit down and give up. Depending on your circumstances, if you're lucky like me to be able to continue to do your gig. But I feel like there's new plateaus I reach every day. I'm like, wow, I know how to do that, So it's heartening, enlightening, and satisfying to still be getting it done and doing it better.
Absolutely. All right, I'm
Wow.
going to ask some questions from this morning. So we had people that wanted to know, what are your top 3 favorite 80s songs?
Wow, that is impossible to name the top 3 because that changes every day. I mean, I could name top artists sort of generally and say
Okay.
that I gravitated more to the new wave. So for me, Howard Jones and Thomas Dolby on the fun side, Tears for Fears.
Oh, yeah.
U2 certainly on the more serious side, Peter Gabriel. Duran Duran, I think, would be the poster band for everybody. If you have an image of what MTV was about, it would be Duran Duran on a boat in the Caribbean.
Yep.
But they were the whole package. I think bands that understood, and the English bands and Australia as well, knew the visual brand very well. David Bowie came to the table already having done lots of visual things in his career. The Beatles started it, really, The American bands, the Styx, the rock and roll, the Journeys, the Aerosmiths were a little behind. It was about live concerts at the beginning of the decade. And they didn't know about promotional video, so they had to catch up, and they did. So I think it was probably from across the pond, the artists from there, Talking Heads, and Once in a Lifetime is still my favorite song.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was so simple, but it was so cool. David Byrne was that at 3 a.m. when you see David Byrne doing the choppy chop.
Once in a lifetime.
The song evokes great memories, a great warmth when I hear Once in a Lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorites, it kind of changes, but it's in that little wheelhouse there.
Sure. Well, I love that you said, across the pond and then Australia. So Men at Work, I'll never forget buying that vinyl and playing it over and over and over again. So when you interviewed them, did they make you eat a Vegemite sandwich?
Oh my God. Well, that was obviously the first big giggle was Vegemite. I had them explain all of the terms in Down Under. What's combi, what's head full of zombie, what's chunder mean, and what's Vegemite. And so they explained it all. They did have a jar of it. And the minute they opened the jar up, Colin Hay and all the band came. And the funny thing about those kind of bands is no one had ever heard of them before they saw them on MTV, them and NXS and any other band. From Frankie Goes to Hollywood to Tears for Fears. No one knew these people until they came on our show. Mm-hmm. So they were as excited to be on our program as we were to have them. So invariably, all the band members would come. They would cut up and have fun. They opened that Vegemite and the smell of it wafted around the studio, and it was nauseating.
Right?
That's your snack food? Give me a Swiss band and Nutella, please. I'll take Roxanne.
We went to Australia, I think it was about 5 years ago. And I'm like, okay, I listen to them all the time. I've got to find out what Vegemite is. And I tasted it and I wanted to brush my tongue off.
Well, my story is that right before I got married 17 years ago, I went to Australia and New Zealand on a bro trip. And we were on a ferry, and teenagers out of high school came onto the ferry to go home, and they whipped out of their backpack a little can of Vegemite. And they were just fingering it out of the thing there. It was like snack food. Oh,
gross.
Hey, each culture has their own snack food. Mine is a Kit Kat. Okay?
Exactly. No Vegemite for me.
No Vegemite. No thanks.
So, Alan, what did you think about everything that we knew MTV to be, the music videos, and then all of a sudden it just changed, and then it didn't look anything like anything that would be MTV. And I think that's some people's questions of like, what do you think about MTV, of how it switched?
Right. What happened to MTV? That's, certainly when people come up to me, they have fond memories of the golden era of the 80s and the original 5. And then, of course, they started getting Downtown Julie Brown, who's a dear friend of ours, and other VJs started coming along as we rolled off. I call it evolution. I say, why are you hung up on where MTV went and what it is or is not to you today? Mm-hmm. I think it was a smart evolution for the channel to get more into lifestyle programming. Some of the first shows that started to be package shows, the video jukebox 24/7 got to be a little stale, and they couldn't get the kind of ratings they wanted to. MTV did not make any money the first year. They started making a little money. And then mid-'80s, they were hot, making tons of money. And then the ratings started to suffer, not because people weren't watching it, but because they didn't know how to monetize it. Mm-hmm. So they had Remote Control, which is the first game show. They had Yo MTV Raps, which was a highly touted program to introduce hip hop and rap to the mix at MTV. We were responsible for bringing that kind of sound to the mainstream. So programs like that they could get sponsors for made sense. As they moved into the 90s, a lot of people kind of left them of my age and generation because they weren't speaking to us anymore with reality programs like 16 and Pregnant, which I like to trash, but my wife is like, no, that show, when that show was on, there were fewer pregnancies in the United States, the data shows, than ever. Weird. You can attribute it to MTV or not, I don't know. But I say I moved on from it. It didn't speak to me, and that's okay. They made tons of money. They started MTV, the movie network. They got into, Paramount obviously was very happy, and Viacom, that they had a money-making machine. That they don't know where they are nowadays.
Yeah. That
they stripped music television from the slug line several years ago. So big deal. I say to people, why would I want to go and watch one channel to watch my videos when I have YouTube?
Exactly.
And the interwebs. I want to see the new Dua Lipa video. I just type in Dua Lipa.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to that point, though, the reverse is that people do miss, and so do I, and so do we all. With the plethora of entertainment choices and channels and Pandoras and Spotify's and television programs, where do we find new music? Where do we get hip to something new? Yeah. I rely on my kids, always sending back and forth. I'm very into new music and very into the exchange with younger people. But they miss that kiosk. They miss MTV being the one place they know they can go to at the beginning or the end of the day. And see something maybe they have never seen or heard before. And I too feel I miss that warmth.
Yeah.
That knowing, and for the other big thing for me, sorry, now I'm getting philosophical and I might just start crying. I don't know.
Oh.
I might just start crying. I credit MTV with being the first social network. Kids in the middle of America felt like they were a part of the party.
Yeah.
They knew what Madonna dressed like, and now they could dress that way too. And the local store, you bet, was starting to carry what Madonna was wearing because the kids were asking for it. They could go to their local record store and buy Duran Duran and the Stray Cats where they couldn't before with radio.
Oh, the Stray Cats, yes.
So the disenfranchised, whether it was because you were in a small town or you were gay or whatever, you didn't feel like you were a part of it. Now, all of a sudden, you are a part of the party, especially on New Year's Eve when we're doing those big New Year's Eve shows. You're watching it too.
Yep.
And you felt you could have that conversation maybe around the water cooler the next day. And so, it was the first social media. And I think that's evident.
Absolutely. So Joy said MTV saved my sanity. I spent the early 80s rocking babies at 2:00 in the morning. I could get lost in the videos while the baby wanted to play instead of sleep. I mean, good memories. We were talking about the mullet earlier. Michelle said business in the front and party in the back. My memory from Mike, standing in a McDonald's parking lot and my friends saying, MTV's on cable. Yay. Music videos 24/7. I didn't believe it. Ran home, turned it on and loved it. To my parents' chagrin because it was on nonstop, I'm sure for so many of you. What was the very first video on MTV?
Oh, well, I don't need to answer that. Surely somebody can. That's easy. That's the second one that's the hard one. But of course, the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star, will forever be, that'll give me the tingles every time.
Somebody wanted to know if you have an absolute favorite music video.
Once in a Lifetime.
Okay.
Talking Heads. Buggles is a favorite sentimentally. I think it's a great song, but in the video was very elemental. It was early video, special effects kind of thing. But because it was the first one, it still elicits a kind of nostalgic response in it for me. Peter Gabriel's Shock the Monkey was an early favorite of mine.
So good.
Pat Benatar gave us some of the heavy duty choreography and Love is a Battlefield. That was fun to see her. Billy Joel gave us some of the most highly produced videos with Allentown and Pressure. Yeah. Early on, those had big budgets.
Now you're bringing back some good memories.
Obviously the big ones would be, and this was when MTV started to become must-see television. At a particular time, people would wait for the Michael Jackson Thriller premiere.
Yes.
On Thursday night. Thriller was the biggest event for MTV in that we did a whole documentary on the making of Thriller just so we could pay for the actual video.
Yep.
And that was an event, and people loved those events. They really did.
Richard said, I was stationed in Fort Gordon, Georgia in 82 when I first saw MTV. I think they only played about 20 videos at that time.
We had a limited library. Beginning, day one, it was about 130 videos in the library. Kid you not.
Yep.
That's why we had 10 Rod Stewart videos, 8 from Pat Benatar. We played Charlie Daniels, for God's sakes. I mean, we were a little limited. Barnes and Barnes, Fish Heads, weird videos.
Oh, God, yes.
But in the mix, people thought it was hilarious. They maybe never heard of the group. And here was a group called PhD or other bands that, again, you never heard of before, never heard of again. But once the record companies and the artists started seeing that MTV was selling records, that was the whole deal, is that when record companies are getting calls from somebody in Montana that says, kids are asking for this U2. They want this Thompson Twins. We don't carry that. Where are they seeing this? Oh, MTV.
Mm-hmm.
When record companies start supplying the stores with those records, and MTV is saying, it's because of us. You wanted us to pay for your videos, you should be paying us.
Yeah. So
a year into it, it became an economic juggernaut. And that's why they started making videos. Who's going to spend money on a promo if it ain't selling your artist records?
That's right.
And when it started selling, then they started putting $500,000 into, the new video, and it made sense. And then MTV, every week, it was nothing more than just saying no to thousands of videos. That were,
I know you all have your favorites. We're going to take a quick break, our final 10 minutes, and we've got to go into the two things that I want to end with. One is your experience. You just mentioned Billy Joel, so we've got to talk about that. Again, 1987, the Russia trip. And hedonism.
Oh my!
I would be remiss if I didn't say hedonism.
I'll prep for that.
That's right after
that.
Think about this. When's the last time you called your doctor at 2 o'clock in the morning and he actually answered? Well, at Innovair Health Advocates, their patients are special. Their doctors, nurse practitioners, their care team care deeply about your health, your family, your work, and even your pet. Their clinicians are accessible and they lead your care in and out of the hospital. In fact, Dr. Charles Willie offers his cell phone number to his patients to ensure they can intervene early in your illness. They can provide care above and beyond, offering lab, x-ray, echocardiogram, and other treatments in their office. Innovair Health Advocates with 5 locations on both sides of the river. Check them out, innovairhealth.com. Welcome back once again. We are in our final 10 minutes with Alan Hunter. You knew him, you love him. Hopefully you still do. He's in Webster Groves. He's here in our area doing 80s on 8 on Sirius XM. So you get a chance to relive the 80s. Okay, I'm going to take you back, my friend. We're going to go back to, let's start first in Russia with Billy Joel. Tell me about that experience.
How apropos is that, right? Towards the end of my time at MTV, I think when people ask what my most satisfying gig was, it was interviewing Billy Joel and going with him on his historic play in Russia. He was the first big Western pop artist to play in Russia in 1987. Gorbachev was in power. This was perestroika. This was glasnost. This was the changeover from the Soviet Union and communism to whatever form of democracy they hoped to be. So Billy made that trip in August, September of 87. MTV did a documentary on the heels of that called Rock and Russia. We were there to explore what pop music meant to young Russian people. So we were there for 2 weeks, saw the show in Leningrad, the show in Moscow. I interviewed Billy in both places. And then we were doing the interview for the documentary in and around that. It was an amazing trip, personally, to be in another country and one that was formerly, the Soviet Union.
Right.
And to see young people in a place like that. The story, I got tons of stories from there, but the biggest was that they were about 10 years behind Western culture, entertainment culture, I should say. So, but the kids knew every lyric to Billy Joel songs, whether they were a metal kid, a pop kid, or, like James Taylor. They came to the concerts in both those towns. packed it out, and they were wearing leather-studded clothes and tattoos and nose rings and coats and ties and all over the place. They had never seen a stage setup like that before. So at the beginning of the show, they're all looking at this huge stage. The music is playing slowly. There are 10 rows in the front of the stage, totally empty, up until 5 minutes before the show. And all the young people are excited. And you got all these military guards around with their guns ready and poised to, I don't know what. All the old people, apparatchik, they called them, came in their finest clothes, mink coats for the women and the men in coats and ties. And they came strutting in and filled the first 10 rows. Boom, the lights go down. And the sound and lights came blaring up. They did it on purpose to just shock the senses of people who had never seen that kind of production before. The kids ate it up. They went crazy. Whatever the first couple of songs were, it was like the Beatles at Shea Stadium. They just screamed and yelled, and the old people sat there like this. 5 songs into it, they all got up and left. Couldn't take it anymore. It's too loud, too Western. And the kids kind of filled in the seats, and Billy just ate it up. Billy gave them a show, probably much different than he did in America, because he sensed the need and the hunger.
Sure.
So for me to be there to interview Billy afterwards, to get his impression of what it was like to be there, it was like the best way for me to cap my time, was to do something as serious as that. You can still see the video. The documentary is called Tell Tchaikovsky or something like that. It's MTV Russia documentary. I think you can find it.
Find that on YouTube. Okay, perfect.
But thereafter, not that Billy and I became good friends, but I saw him here and there, up and down the New York streets or something. I'd wave at him. I had 2 friends from Birmingham, as a matter of fact, that they were visiting, and we walked down. Billy and Christy were in a cafe, and I waved at him, thinking he'll never in a million years. And he goes, "Yo, Alan!" And I was like, "Yes,
yes, he remembers me."
Yes, so cool.
Well, all right, let's end with this. So hedonism, what was it like, my friend? What was it like? This is crazy.
Well, my time at MTV, the latter few years was all about me getting out of the studio and being the man in the street, and I loved the being out and about and going fun places and doing wild stuff with viewers, with Samantha Fox and with Bon Jovi. So I just had my child. He was 6 months old, and MTV says, "We'd like for you to go to Jamaica for a week and do silly stuff with Bon Jovi." I said, "I can't. I'm a new father. My wife will kill me." They said, "Well, we'll fire you." So off to Jamaica we went. Samantha Fox, an English beauty, was my co-host, and John Bon Jovi. John's on the right there, I think, and Richie on the left, and the rest of the band members. For a week, we did silly stuff. We drank a lot of beer. We did silly things at Club Hedonism in Jamaica. And it was good, silly fun. This was up there with Spring Break. MTV, I did the first Spring Breaks in 86 and 87. This is when MTV began to get out of the studio, to get out of New York, and to go and do wild and crazy things. I mean, this was the beginning here of reality television, really. On the heels of that, I did Amuck in America, which was a road trip across the United States. We're playing the Casio. We loved it, playing. But MTV started doing that kind of specialized, aspirational programming, if you will. People are like, "Wow, wouldn't I love to be a Club Hedonism with Alan and Bon Jovi?" And certainly people would then come to me and say, "That's a fascinating life you lead." To which I disabuse them of that notion and say, "Yeah, my wife, meanwhile, is at home." Really,
that's what I was going to say. So how
raising my child?
You're married and you've got a kid, and there's women and short shorts and scantily clad. There was so much at you. You had to be strong.
It was bad. Well, to every personality, particularly in the rock world, has got the same story. Rockers touring relentlessly, missing their family. Their wives wonder what's going on. It was fabulous, and it was hell at the same time. But it made for good television. It made for good ratings, and that's why they gave me a big giant raise my last couple of years. So it was good.
Well, my friend, I know you've got to get off to somewhere at 11 o'clock. We were just talking at the break, and Alan's. I think, can we get you back on and come in studio?
Why? Sure, but do I have to exercise? I mean, I know you want to go on a regime.
No, I'll let you off.
Pilates, yoga, what is it? What do you?
I do it all. I do lifting, I Pilates, yoga, just trying to keep everybody all balanced in life.
Well, I told you,
your shoulder.
I got a new shoulder 5 weeks ago, right? So I at my age, I started karate about 7 years ago. I took my young kids, my young boys, to do karate. And I was so into watching them that this was in Chicago. We lived in Chicago 8 years ago. And I was so into it that I started karate. Of course, they dropped out and I stayed in there, got my black belt 5 years later. Never been in better shape, but it ruined every joint in my body. I kicked my knee out in a tournament and had scoped. I damaged my shoulder and had that scoped. And finally, I fortunately came to Wash U, where we've got the best orthopedic doctors on the planet.
That's right.
And I got a new shoulder 5 weeks ago. Feels great, a little stiff.
Was it arthroscopic?
No. I got a new shoulder replacement.
So if you go through the airport, do you go off?
You're not yet. I haven't been on an airplane. We'll see.
We'll have to
Surely
see.
They have figured that out.
Alan Hunter, what are you carrying?
What are they going to do? Strip search me?
That'd be like hedonism.
It's a VJ. He doesn't mind. Come on. I'm used to that.
Oh, Diane just said, who did your shoulder surgery?
Doctor is Mistowski. Benjamin's Mistowski. I guess I'm promoting Benjamin now. He's
exactly.
Out of WashU, out of the Chester. It seemed like Chesterfield. This is me getting to know St. Louis. If you want any orthopedics done, you just drive west, go to Chesterfield, and anywhere you get out, it'll be an orthopedic clinic, I'm sure.
We have some good ones in town as well.
Yes, we do. So no, look, they take care of the Cardinals and they take care of the soccer guys. So I figure they're okay for this old VJ.
Have you been to a game yet, by the way? Our St. Louis
CSC? I have not. They're bigger soccer fans than me, but I love soccer and I love seeing any live event. I've been to a couple of Cardinals games when I first came, but I want to
get to a soccer one.
I got to get to a soccer if I can find a damn ticket.
I know, right?
My whole gig moving to any town. We moved here from San Francisco, and I got to know the Giants people a little bit, and my only thing is just getting tickets to stuff. The pageant people, the Del Mar, going to all the concerts. Just can I get in? Just let me in the back door.
Do you know who I am? I'm Alan Hunter.
I don't want to
line up for me.
That's a dangerous card to play because the rejection is so bad. Don't you remember me? No, get the hell out of here.
Who are you? No, where's the mullet?
But I'm working.
Have you been to the Fox, by the way? Because I know you want to be on Broadway.
Been to the Fox many times. My youngest, who's almost 13, he and I are I'm a Broadway musical nerd. I mean, there's no bigger Sondheim fan than me.
I love it.
I wanted to be in a Broadway musical. And one day I still may, I'm looking for that little cameo in Grease. DJ Al Hunter.
Give us your best. This is your audition. What would you do?
Oklahoma, when the wind comes winding through the trees. Da 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 da. I got a good voice. I can sing. I actually had my agent for years trying to get me on Dancing with the Stars. When that first started, I said, I danced in David Bowie's video. I'm a good dancer. I was a ballet guy. And, it came this close. Every time they said they're interested in some B-list, athlete gets into the show. So
we're going to campaign. We want Alan Hunter on Dancing with the Stars.
Well, it's great to be here in St. Louis. If you see me in the streets, buy me a cup of coffee.
Please, he's going to come over to Coma because that's where
I'll
our
come to
studio.
Coma. I come to Coma all the time with my.
All right, so you let me know when you come to Coma. We'll bring you up into the studios. So here's what I'll let you do. I know there's a lot of interviews that you've done where you've talked about your final day and how you were just racing off to try to get to your family and the final things that you said on your final day at MTV. If you had to do it all over again, would you end the same way?
No, I would not. I'd be a little bit more in the moment. I was racing to get my family off to the airport to go to Los Angeles and lead our new lives. And so I don't think I gave all the hundreds of people that, were a part of the show for all those many years. I didn't give them enough hugs. To the audience, I said simply, I'll see you later, peace and progress. And I did that and I was done. So I think I don't like goodbyes. I don't do well with it. I know a lot of people say that, but why put a final stamp on anything when invariably we come back to it. Artists all day long are trying to retire, and look at that. They unretire. Kiss said they're done, but I don't believe it.
I don't either.
So I don't put much stock in the final goodbye, and I certainly don't put any stock in the emotional goodbye, because to me that's a burden on the audience, even if they love you. I'm glad I was there for 7 years. It was an amazing gig, best job of my life. I've had more lucrative jobs thereafter and ones that were more satisfying, the ones that I was more in control of than the film business and beyond. And I like doing radio now because I don't have to shave or wear pants.
Oh, he doesn't have pants on. Now we know.
God bless Zoom, right?
Well, I'm not going to say goodbye to you because I'm
Okay.
going to see you at Coma, and we're going to bring you
Yes.
to the studios, and we're going to have you in person very soon. But what I will say is the same way I end every show, and that is everybody realize that he told you at any point, toss and turn, and life is up and down. You want to be a Broadway star, you become a VJ, now you're on radio. You can be anything you ever want to be. But one thing we should always be to each other is kind.
Can't agree more. We need more of that as Depeche Mode people are people. Why should it be that we should get along so awfully? Come on, let's get along. Let's find solutions to our common problems. You like Thomas Dolby, I like Whitesnake, but we will all be in it together.
That's it. That's the way we end. Love it, my friend.
Thank you, Monica.